Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back again today to talk about Oshi, chapter number 133. This chapter is titled Acting, and there's gotta be another chapter in this series titled Acting, or at least acting ability, like something like that, because just the title of Acting, that is almost the basis for this entire series. So for just chapter 133 to be called this, it's like, okay now. So, but currently, just to let you know how this recording is going, so it is currently, again, about a week after this chapter's come out, but hey, it's like 5 days and not 7 this time, so we're doing a bit better. I am currently recording this in the back of my car, as I normally record all my videos, but today, instead of having like a full seat to myself, I have like a quarter of a seat because I am currently sitting next to a roll of toilet paper, a tablecloth, a bread flat, and an entire folding table sitting in the back seat. So I am very cramped. So if this video goes by like really fast, it's because I am very cramped and I really just don't want to have to sit here for a very long time talking about this Oshi chapter. But we're going to talk about Oshi because yeah, this chapter is a very interesting one. I really like this chapter a bit more than the last one, because if you don't remember, the last one is all about Nino, who is the character that Kana is playing in the 15-Year Line movie. And I really just wasn't a fan of how characters were portrayed in that chapter, and I really don't like the end of this chapter either too much, just because I hate to see these characters go through pain, because it just hurts me inside to see it. But I feel like this chapter does have a lot of interesting development to it, right? So without any more further ado, I've got 2 things to talk about, and then we'll get into the chapter, right? I do a lot of anime manga content on this channel, a ton of other Oshi chapter reviews, so if you end up liking this one, hey, maybe go check out those, it just helps me a lot. And like I said, I already mentioned what happened last time with the Nino stuff, so let's just hop right in, chapter number 133, titled Acting. So we start off this chapter with, obviously, Ruby in the eye costume acting, right? She's acting very well, she's just going, and she's going, and it's like, alright, again, we gotta do that scene one more time, right? And she just keeps doing it, and eventually we see that they are taking a small break from acting. We see Ruby here, and she's just very tired of everything, and she's sort of sitting here, and Kana walks over, and she's just like, oh, hey, Ruby, are you doing alright now? Hey, here's some water for you, right? And Ruby's just like, oh, thank you, right? And she takes it, and she's really been messed up for a while ever since she had that conversation with Nino, right? She's sort of sitting here, and she just keeps getting Nino's words into her head, right? They're just sort of living rent-free in there and just constantly torturing her every time she tries to think. And the line that we particularly see is whenever Nino said, "The real I would never say anything like that." And Ruby is sort of just sitting here, and she's just like, Kana, what do? I don't understand. What kind of person was my real mom? How did she actually feel? Because, of course, we know that Ruby, she loves Ai. She beloves her mother so very much from her time as Ferenia, even now to her time as Ruby. And for her to sit here now and just sort of not understand what is going on, maybe her mom isn't the person that she thought she was. She's having a real big identity crisis in a way here. And we sort of see here, and she starts to cry, and she turns over to Kana, and she's like, hey, what should I do, senpai? As Kana stands here, and she just gets some thinking, right? And she's just like, my impression after talking with the real Nino was that she was the kind of person with a love and hate. Not only was she obsessed with someone who died many, many years ago, but she also continues to hate her. Pretty much saying that, yeah, even though she's dead, she still holds this resentment. Even though this soul is no longer on this earth, right? She's dead, but she still continues to hate and have this resentment. And she just continues saying that the hatred is so deep that you could even call it love. Which is a very interesting allegory here, because of course we know this series is all based on love. What does I mean in Japanese, huh? Love? Who would have thought, right? That brings me to one of my funnier points. Like, whenever I was first reading Oshi, I was like, You know what? The name I is like two meaning, right? Because I know like I means love in Japanese, but also lie. If you say it in a certain way, it sounds like lie, lie. It's like those seem together, right? Isn't that what it's supposed to mean? But no, I simply just means love. And this is a very interesting thing, like I just said, because of course the whole series is based on love. So showing that this love can be used as a hatred in another way, it's a very interesting observation that Kana makes here, right? But she continues on in her thoughts, and she's just like, I'm able to act out those feelings because there are times when I envy and hate people too. But she just continues to think that it must be very tough for Ruby because their exceptions for what she needs to be playing are possibly just too high. So, makes perfect sense, and we'll get into Kana's sort of thoughts on love and hatred here later in the chapter, right? Oh, she continues, as she just says, plus I's mental state isn't something that can be understood easily unless she has the same experience as I. So at this point, we end up cutting back to the Strawberry Productions headquarters, aka where Miyako, Ruby, and Aqua live. Because as we get here, we see that Kana is walking through the house, or just seeing everything that's going on, and eventually, it's obvious that she is coming to come after Ruby. An interesting thing to note here is that she actually now has her bob cut again. There is no more of the weird hair that Nino had, right? It is strictly Kana's regular bob cut, which makes it so much easier to tell her apart, because I'm like, okay, that is Kana, right? But as we sit here, we see that she walks over to Ruby's room, where we see that Ruby's in a room, and she is crying on the ground. She's obviously over the script, and she's sort of just sitting here just tearing up. And Kana walks up behind her and sort of sits down facing the opposite way. So pretty much if Kana is sitting towards one way, their backs are pretty much touching, and Kana's just like, hey, why are you crying, Ruby? And Ruby's just like, it's just so frustrating, as they sort of just sit together in silence for a moment, as Kana just thinks, like, I feel you, Ruby. But she just says, hey, just take it easy for now and just get some rest, right? But Ruby's just like, hey, don't worry about me. She's like, you'll focus on being an actress in the future, so if this movie doesn't do well, you'll be in a lot of trouble, right? And Kana's just like, oh, so you were really worried about me, right? And Ruby's like, yeah, of course, you're my precious teammate. And Kana's just like, hey, I'll be an actress after I graduate from becoming a Hachi, so none of it should really concern you anymore, right? But Ruby's just like, but you're my friend, so it's only natural that I'd be very worried about you, right? And Kana sees this, and she sort of just takes in everything about Ruby, and she just thinks that, man, Ruby, you're just so cute and honest. And she's just like, that is why you cannot play the role of I like this. We don't know much about I, but we don't know if this is truly how I is. As eventually we see another moment of silence happens. I take that this entire scene takes place over like a 5-minute period of just words being exchanged here and there, but just a lot of silence so these two characters can just feel their own thoughts as time goes on. And Kana's just like, hey, why are you desperately trying to do your best here, right? And Ruby says, I mean, isn't it obvious? I'm playing the role of my own mom. The goal of this movie is for our family to come to terms with the past. And this is a very interesting, not only wording, but imagery that goes along with it. Because as she says, the goal of this movie is for our family to come to terms with the past. We see the family, right? We see Aqua, who is the brother, right? I mean, they're related by blood. We see I, the true mother, the mother of the two twins, and the whole reason for the series existing. We see Miyako, who has taken on the role of Aqua and Ruby's mother after their mother has been dead, and she is one of the best mothers that they've ever had. I mean, probably the best being that, looking at Serena's life, I mean, her original mother, right? Pretty shitty person, right? I mean, Marina is terrible in all regards, right? I is great, but she's dead, which sort of means that she didn't succeed in mothering too well. And then, of course, we have the third mother, who is Miyako, who has been there for these twins for as long as they can remember, so she's just a great stepmother. But the last character we see is actually Akane, which is very interesting because that means that Ruby sees Akane as family, which for all of us Aqua Kana shippers out there, this is like the best news we've gotten all month, man. Like, just look at this. This is great. But eventually, Ruby just continues, just going on saying that the goal of the movie is for our family to come to terms with the past. That way we can look forward into the future instead of getting caught up in the past, which is a very sort of noble reason for making this movie, even though if it also is to say, Hikaru, go to hell, right? So, Ruby just starts crying at this point, and we see that her star eyes, her Staringan, or light Staringans, they just become very big, as she just like, I have to do this right no matter what. That is why I want to understand Mama. I want to perform well at any cost. As we see that she's just freaking out, right? And she's just like crying. She's so upset that she just doesn't understand one of the people who she thought she understood perfectly. It's sort of just terrible to Ruby because for everything she thought she knew, it's now almost being like she doesn't know any of it at all. And at this point, Kana, we sort of get Kana's thoughts, and she's just like, hey, I'm sure I don't understand even a tenth of what you two have been through. Obviously, you're referring to Ruby and Aqua. But she's like, and all of the feelings that you've put into this movie, or perhaps the only people concerned can understand that. But I feel the same way. As we see a young Kana, this was in like chapter 4 whenever we first got introduced to Kana, and whenever the twins were very young and Aqua was acting in the movie so that I could get a big role with director Kaburagi, Gotonda. I don't know why I forgot Gotonda's name for a second there, right? But it's her pulling on Gotonda's sweatshirt just saying, hey, I want my acting to be good. I want to perform well. Because we know that Kana has had this crisis before. It was just at a very much younger point in her life, and she has sort of gotten over it in a lot of ways. But she just continues, I feel the same way. And I felt that way for a long time. As we even see that the word long is written L, 3 O's in G. So it's not just long, it's long time. And she just says, I understand that feeling so well that it feels like her crying is just going to tear my own self apart. As we see the two of these friends sitting here, friends, we'll see where that goes here in a second. But we see that Ruby is crying just looking at the script, but we see Kana is just smiling, sitting here, as she just says, well, there's only one thing I can do for you. And she's like, I'll give you just one piece of the puzzle to help you understand I. And she says, but that piece is, as we see the regret sort of building in Kana's eyes as she eventually stands up from her position sitting behind Ruby. And she says, Ruby, I'm sorry, but you are the only one who thinks that we are friends. I decided to quit being an idol, cause you're there, you know? And Ruby sort of just looks around and just starts crying again. She's like, hey, Kana, what is all this going on a sudden, right? And Kana says, as an idol, Kana Amaria can never surpass Ruby Hoshino, no matter what she does. Knowing that, I had no choice but to go somewhere that you're not around. Otherwise, you'll take everything from me. In the end, we're simply all extras for Big Komodachi. Me, Mimcho, all of us. We're just there to make Ruby Hoshino look 10 times better. There is no way I'm not wrapped up in envy and jealousy. As we see that she sort of stops here, and we pan over to Kana, whose eyes just go dark, and she just sits here and looks, and she's just there, and we can tell that Ruby's heart is just being torn apart this entire time. And Ruby had gone through so much things, like she got the therapy she needed, right? Or she met the doctor in Aqua. Things went so well, but all of a sudden, it's all just come crashing back down, and Ruby is just at ground zero once again. But we get Kana's thoughts now, as she just like, hey, there you go. That is how your mother felt. The real feelings of envy and jealousy, despair and loneliness. You want to understand how your mother felt, and you want to perform well, don't you? I understand that feeling better than anyone. That is why I thought I'd take this truly frustrating, shameful feeling of jealousy towards you to my grave. But I'm not going to hide it anymore. I'll just show it to you, even though it may mean I will lose my precious friend. As we see the final part of the chapter, the final page, the final words uttered, are Kana, who just screams, time and time again, I'd wish you'd go away. Can't you just disappear already? And that is where we end this chapter. This chapter, I'll give it credit. It does a lot of things really well. Like I said, I think this is a good chapter, but I personally just don't like it because I want to see these characters be happy. And it's just obvious that Asakasa cannot write any of these characters to be happy. My favorite part was when Aqua was like, oh, maybe my dad is dead. And he sort of just chilled out for a while, right? But then, of course, we got Dark Ruby, which made Dark Aqua again. And it just turned the entire thing up on its head. And it's just like, man, I want these characters to be happy. It's the genuine one thing that I want. But it makes a lot of sense. Kana would, of course, had all these feelings sort of build up and reserved just inside herself. And eventually they had to come out. And this is just where it is. And it's obvious here that Kana does look at Ruby as a friend. I mean, both of them thought they were friends. But in order for Kana to be like, hey, I understand your feeling, Ruby. You want to act well? This is the one way I can help you do it. This is the one way I can make you understand how your mom felt. She felt that everyone around her didn't want to be around her because she was too perfect. And it's just so sad to see. And eventually just seeing Kana's final words of, time and time again, I'd wish you go away. Can't you just disappear already? It's just, man, I mean, it just hits you. Man, I mean, I just don't know what to say even more about that. And just Ruby's new despair. I mean, I just wonder where we're going to go next chapter, because Oshi no Ko is a series that is very episodic in a way. I mean, especially these past few chapters. I mean, we have a lot of, alright, from A to B to C to D, but right now it's sort of like, alright, we're acting a little bit. We're getting hearts broken. We're acting a little bit. Somebody is telling somebody else to go to hell. We're acting a little bit. Oh no, everything's hunky-dory, all good, right? So I don't know where next chapter is going to end up taking us. Next chapter will release on December 6th of 2023, of course at 10 a.m. like they normally do. We'll see if I get the chapter review out by then, right? So that's all I really have to say. Of course, I've already said my thoughts on this chapter. Good. I don't necessarily like the way it's going just because I want these characters to be happy, but it's a good chapter. So if you did end up enjoying this Oshi no Ko chapter review, hopefully you might consider liking the video, leaving a comment down below if you want the Oshi no Ko characters to be happy, because that's what I want for them. And with that, I really don't have too much else to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Just watching the video just helps me out so much already, and yeah, I'll be back next time with Oshi no Ko, chapter number 134 review. And yeah, this will be Glowplasma231